Well, we're super excited to have you with us today, Brandon. You're a dual licensed barber and cosmetologist. You've been in the barbering industry for the past 12 years. You're an international platform artist, a national educator for John Paul Mitchell Systems, a member of the Maverick barbering team for John Paul Mitchell Systems. You're the barber specialist at Paul Mitchell School Orlando. You've done platform work. You've worked backstage for the Premier Hair Show, Bronner Brothers, Fashion Focus. The list just goes on. You are also
Yeah.
an owner of Mr. B's Grooming Lounge in Orlando, Florida, where you work behind the chair daily. Wow, you are in hair all the time, aren't
All
you?
the time, man. All the time.
That is awesome. So, as you know, somebody who's in hair and a salon owner and works in the school, and obviously you've built your career on this. What advice do you wish you had when you first started out? When you started your
Yeah.
journey?
I think the biggest thing that I wish I had known coming out of like hair school and whatnot is just to be open. Like a lot of future professionals, I was so closed-minded because I knew exactly where I wanted to work. I knew exactly the type of clientele that were coming into that space. And instead of me taking in everything that I could, I blocked myself off to things that took me a longer time to learn. Right. So if I'm looking at something that I could have learned in hair school that took me 3, 4 years to learn, I would have made myself a lot more money early on in my career and would have opened myself up and exposed myself to different things. So just being closed-minded as an early or young stylist or young barber really hurt me in a lot of different ways. So that's what I try to encourage future professionals and new stylists and new barbers to really just be open to everything, right? Long hair, short hair, haircuts, color, whatever that looks like, and I closed myself off to a lot of that early on.
Mm. That's really amazing that you say that, Brandon, because, as I look back in my life too, it's like I just wasn't coachable in
Oh
moments.
yeah.
And, my
Hmm.
husband will tell you that one. She was not coachable when we first got married. But what is it for you that kind of caused that? And how do you coach people to be coachable? Because I think one of the
Hmm.
biggest challenges that I see with our brand new stylists in our salon and our future professionals that really struggle, and I don't even want to call them resistors. I want to call them more, they're just not coachable. But what do you think is
Hmm.
causing that? And someone that can kind of recognize that in themselves. And then, of course, let's take it on the flip side, because here you are, an instructor in a cosmetology school. How do you coach uncoachable people?
Yeah, I think that sometimes is the hardest part. I think for me, it was where my coachability started to come in was that I looked around and I saw that my work wasn't as good as everybody else's, and I wasn't making as much money as everybody else. So it took for me to actually go into the salon, not do well at all, right, and then see that there was a difference between where I wanted to be and where I was at. And at that point, it took for me to reach out to the salon owner and be like, hey, listen, my stuff doesn't look like yours. Like, I need to get to that level because I want to make that kind of money. And I think for future professionals, the biggest thing is trying to get them to remember their why, right? Understanding what their why is. Like, why did you come in here to, sign up for school? Is it your kids? Well, think about your kids. Like, do your kids want to see you not, exceeding or going as high as you can, or is it your want to have flexibility in a career, right? Do you want to be stuck working in a cubicle 9 to 5, or do you want flexibility for yourself? I think reminding them of what the end goal is, right? So start with the end in mind and have them just kind of see that process, and I'm a big believer in being patient with the process. And I think because newer students or future professionals now, they have social media, right? And they're looking at these videos and these pictures and they're gauging themselves against sometimes unrealistic work for them, right? And so they try to speed or rush through their process. And because they're not seeing the results that they want to instantaneously, because they're so used to having that, right? It causes them to be a little bit more reluctant, like, oh, I'm not getting where I need to be, so apparently your instruction is bad, or this person is bad. They're not really seeing the process. So I think it's reminding them of their why, and understand, and trying to get them to understand that this is a process, right? And the product comes once that process has been really fulfilled, right? And so having them to understand that aspect, I feel, is really important. And then on top of that, I mean, like you guys know, some people, you're never going to be able to coach them. I mean, and that's just the reality of it. And some of them it's going to take a little bit more of maybe that, that little bit of a failing aspect, right? For myself, that's what it took. It took me to kind of get out there and fail a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
then have the resiliency to try to come back and really work through that. And I feel like the downfall for a lot of our future professionals is that when they hit that point, maybe they finish school by the skin of their teeth and they go and work and they hit that point of, I'm not doing that well. Some of them don't stick with it, right? And you end up
Right.
seeing them working at, a grocery store or working at somewhere else. Or so I think if we can get them to the point where they're understanding and seeing the importance of it first, right? And sometimes that really does work, and we're able to kind of shift to have that little 10% shift, and it works well. But I think the biggest thing is just keeping them their mindset focused on what the end goal is.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just coaching a future professional, and you're right. It was kind of at that point where like, I'm not going to be able to fix and change you. And I have that tendency of like, I want to fix it. I asked my
Yeah,
husband again, I've been working on him for 34 years, but
yeah,
it's the same thing with my team members. I'm like, I just know they can, transform. I just know that this can happen. And I'm hoping like some magic word might help, but
yeah.
you're right. I think it's just allowing them to fail too. And I want you to talk to salon owners because Sean and I, we coach salon owners. And I think,
Hmm.
first and foremost, we talk about the ideal team player in our salons where we hire humble, hungry, smart,
Hmm.
and I think many times we make that hiring mistake of, many salon owners don't have like an ideal team player idea in their head. They're just kind of hiring, anyone that breathes,
Whoever. Yeah,
to
yeah,
work, and they don't really study that person. And so
yeah.
they're really frustrated, with what they're being attracted to, so to speak, right? And so
Hmm.
talk to them right now, like what advice do you give them as far as, getting into the cosmetology schools, how to hire the right person? What do you do for
Yeah.
yourself?
I think the challenge becomes when salon owners come into the school, they're looking for that skill set, right? They're
Yeah.
looking for a skill set from a future professional, which is cool, right? But what they don't really spend the time in understanding is their will, right? I can teach you skill, right? If I get you to come into the shop, I can teach you how to do hair, the fundamentals of hair cutting, all that stuff. I can teach you that. But the willpower, that will aspect of it, I can't teach that. You either have that or you don't. And I think what happens is when salon owners come into the school, they may see somebody who's extremely talented, right? Great skill set for a student. But then when they start to work with them more, they see like this person's lazy, right? They don't have the will to actually do what they want to do. One guest, that one amazing guest, and then they want to scoot and go home, right? And so I think understanding the mindset of that potential hiree is going to be that much more important. So putting in that work on the front side of it is going to be very important, because I always say I can teach skill, but I can't teach will, right? So in understanding that and making sure that there's an expectation, right? I think that's one of the biggest things is that if there's no expectation for them to see or to know about, then they kind of just make up their own of what they're willing to give. So if there's a firm expectation, like this is the work, this is what the work we put out, this is what we expect, and this is where you have to be in order to get that. And I think that's really the hardest part of leadership, especially salon leadership, is that you may see somebody who's extremely talented, but if you don't think that they're a team player, sometimes we let them stick around a little bit too long for the sake of financial reasons, right? We want to fill a space in a salon. We want to be able to create more revenue, but in the back end of it, we're really not paying attention to all of the stuff that we're kind of letting slide on the back end and that our other salon stylists or barbers are seeing, right? And so one thing I always kind of say is like, if you allow it, you promote it, right? If you allow it, you promote it. So if I let one new stylist or barber do something that's not in line with what the expectation is for everyone else, that's an instant promotion to everyone that, hey, this is okay to do now, right? Because leadership is influence. Leadership is influence at the end of the day. And so we all have that influence, whether we're over 5 people or 500 people. So we have to set the tone, right? Understand that there's an accountability and an aspect that cannot be, or a level of productivity that cannot be dropped to a lower level. And then also with salon owners, making sure they do their homework on those new stylists and really have that sit down conversation. It can be something that's so simple as, taking them to lunch, right? Figuring out, what they want to do, what they want to be. Because one thing I've noticed with newer stylists that are coming out of our schools, it's different now, right? I graduated school 15 years ago almost, right? Sounds crazy, but I graduated a long time. And so in my mind, my only goal was I wanted to work in the shop. I wanted to make money. End of story, right? Now these newer future professionals, when they get out of school, they only want to do hair 2-3 days a week, right? They want to do hair a couple days a week, and then a couple other days they want to, I don't know, do real estate or something else, right? So I think the mindset of salon owners has to change a little bit in the aspect that we have to be just a little more flexible if we're working with newer people in, right? We have to kind of think about what that looks like, but at the same time, not dropping the standard of expectation that we have for ourselves and for our employees, and then obviously that what we give to the guests as well.
Wow. Okay, you dropped a lot of bombs here, but I want to pivot to what you just said because this is huge. You know, as you know, I'm a school owner of 4 schools, and Sean runs all of them, and we're seeing a different type of future professional come in to begin our programs. And I think many salon owners are kind of still stuck in, 20 years ago, what the student was
100%.
like. And so every time I meet a brand new class, I would say about 9 out of 10 literally raise their hand that want to own their own business someday. And so we're taking on a whole different mentality. We've got an entrepreneur spirit happening in our country right now. And I think a lot of salon owners are sitting back and saying, what the heck is going on? Like, they're complaining about it. But let's talk about that. Let's stay on that for a moment. What shifts have you seen over these years that you've been in the school world? And what do we do about it? Give advice to salon owners.
Yeah, I think the shift has been like I said, when I was in school, I really didn't want to own a salon or a barbershop. I wanted to go work for someone else. I wanted to, do a good job in that. And most of the people that it was in class with, we all had the same kind of goal. And like you said, there's more of an entrepreneurial spirit with these newer students that are coming out. So they all want to own salons, right? And because salon owners are so stuck in that older mindset, they miss it, right? They miss it. So that's why you'll see a lot of younger stylists a year or 2 years out of hair school opening up a salon, right? Because the place that they wanted to go doesn't really mesh well with how they're thinking in their mindset, right? And so if you ever notice, sometimes those salons or shops that are owned by newly licensed professionals, they tend to get staffing very easily, right? They don't have a problem getting new stylists. They don't have a problem getting new barbers because they understand the mindset that those people are in, or that those new hirees are in, because it's the same one that they're in, right? And so I think the shift has to happen is that we have to, as older people in the game or in the industry, have to realize is that this is where the wave is at. So maybe creating different programs or packages to kind of accommodate that stylist who may want to work 2-3 days a week, right? And being able to and open that station up to somebody else that wants to work those 2 or 3 days a week. Because the whole, you work 40 hours a week or nothing type vibe, that's not going to really happen much longer, because those same stylists are going to go, especially when you have salon suites, like Sola and iStudio and all of this stuff like that. That really puts a hurt on salon owners in that you're losing potential employees, right? You're losing potential employees to that. So there has to be a shift, and there has to be something else created in order to accommodate that. Maybe that looks like you take 2 or 3 chairs out of your salon and dictate or don't, or like dedicate that to people who are just working 2-3 days a week, right? And then I still have the rest of my chairs kind of working and running full time. But if that mindset doesn't shift or doesn't change, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, because a lot of these newer students, they really want to create their own. They want to be their own person. And we see that with like social media, right? They're driven through social media, and they're seeing these people creating great things and seeing, their creativity really expand, and they want to be a part of that process. And so if we want to set them up, the next generation up for success, we really have to be able to not only own it, but cultivate it, right? So that we can continue to have great quality throughout the years in this industry.
Wow. Almost like kind of shifting your business plan, so to speak, too, to
100%.
meet the needs of the future professionals. Talk to the salon owners. What do you wish that they would do more of or less of or start doing? I always like to say, and I know I have, a list in my head, because I always ask the salon owners to come in more, to our
Hmm.
schools, and they're not. You know, instead they're picking up the phone and calling us, can you send us some future professionals? Pretty much all that's left is the resistors, because all of the
All of the
visionaries
good
have
ones.
already gotten jobs,
Yeah.
you know, because we've had incredible salon owners that are always in. I mean, literally always in, just scoping out new talent, whether they're, you know, teaching a class on the floor or being a guest speaker, but they're
Right.
always in, maybe just dropping off gifts for the future professionals, you know, whatever business class they could teach. It could be hands-on,
Hmm.
whatever. What's your wish list that you wish that salon owners would do more of?
Yeah, number one, I wish they would do more of is cultivate genuine relationship, right? Not
Yeah.
just coming by the school when you really want, when I want to scope out your phase two and try to, pick off somebody that can assist me on Saturday, right? But cultivate genuine relationship and what that looks like. So host a field trip, right? Host where you can have those phase two students or phase one students or whoever that looks like come in and just talk
Mhm.
for a little bit, right? Cultivate genuine relationship. And then also number two, when they go into the schools, don't downplay what the students are learning, right?
Yeah.
Because then what you're really doing is devaluing the place where you need to get more people in, right? If you're going to grow your business and the school is the place where you're growing your business from, don't downplay and devalue what they're learning simply because you want to make your technique or your system seem that much better,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes that happens a lot, and it can be done like, I mean, very easily. A salon owner come in and maybe they think, oh, well, how do they teach y'all to do this? Oh, no, 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 that's not how they do it in the real world,
Yeah.
right? And I
Right.
and they'll say that, oh, that's not how it's done in the
Yeah.
real world. And so what does that student then do? Well, salon owner so and so, Susie Joe, said that that's not how they do it behind the chair. So then they're devaluing the education that that student is getting. That student clicks out because they feel like they're not learning what they should be learning,
Yeah.
right? And so that takes a whole nother path. Then they skip school, they don't want to come, whatever that looks like. And so now the salon owner, in trying to make themselves look good, because that's what they're doing, they're trying to make themselves look good, they're actually making their business look worse.
Yeah.
Because then what happens, what they sometimes don't realize is that the learning leaders have a huge influence on a lot of times where
Yeah.
these students will go, right?
Exactly.
Because if a student asks or finds out about a salon, they're going to go to one of their learning leaders and say, hey, what did you hear about Tina Black's salon?
Hmm.
If I'm a learning leader and I know that you said, X, Y, and Z, that's not real, whatever, you're probably not going to get very good rapport with that. So building genuine relationships with the schools, and then also making sure not to devalue what it is that they're learning in school.
Wow. You just
Yeah.
dropped a couple really big bombs that I have
Yeah.
seen with a lot of salon owners. You're so right. And, you know,
Mhm.
we have this one salon owner, and I love what he does. He'll come in and just stop in unannounced, and he'll
Yeah.
take a picture because, you know, he hires, you know, quite a few of our students, take a picture and put on social media, I love this school. You know, he's
Hmm.
building genuine relationships with us, but why isn't all of the salon owners doing this, you know? And it's just
Yeah.
like that little shift that they could make, and to always be hiring. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of salon owners do, like, oh, we're not hiring right now. They only hire when, you know, they're supposed to, but they should be, it'd be an influx, you know, of hiring,
Hmm.
like you said, because many people are getting out of the industry, they're hopping in, hopping out. It's just the way of this industry, the way that it works, and we just have
Hmm.
to like get used to it, but also creating a place where people never want to leave. So
Hmm.
let's talk about that. How have you created a place where people don't want to leave you, Brandon? What advice do you give?
I think the biggest thing I would say as it pertains to that is making sure that the environment is conducive to what everyone would be able to be comfortable in. And then at sometimes as a owner, don't sweat the small stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes we have to don't sweat the small stuff because people are growing, they're learning, and as our industry gets younger and younger and younger, there's going to be some young people kind of mistakes that happens in the salon. So I think understanding number one that your attitude sets the tone, right, for the shop. If you're angry a lot coming in or inconsistent a lot coming in or indecisive, right, that's
Yeah.
one thing is that's
Ooh,
huge with
that's
salon
good.
owners is extremely indecisive with their team, right? So if you're indecisive, they really don't know where you're going one day or the next, right? So that's why it's important. And I try for myself. I never let my team know anything until I know that it's going to happen 100%, right? I
Yeah.
don't really play the whole, hey, well, maybe we're going to do this, or we plan on doing this, or potentially we could do that, because now you're setting an expectation that even you yourself don't even know if it's going to happen or not, right?
Yeah.
So by being very pointed and very upfront about things, it's going to really keep the mindset of the people that's working there like, all right, cool. Well, Tina knows what's going on. Brandon knows what's going on. Exactly these things. So not being indecisive, and then not sweating the small stuff, and allowing people to grow, right? Find out where they want to grow and what opportunities that we can create. And so one motto that I always kind of go by is be the mentor to someone else that someone was to you. And so a lot of times as salon owners, we can be a little aloof, right? I know even for me myself can be a little aloof in that I may not always be as available, right? And so being intentional about being available for the team is so important, because what it then shows is that that kind of human aspect, right? And I know sometimes people think salon owners are just these like kind of lofty people that are in and they're out, they're here one day, they're not here the next day, but just being as available as you can and really showing that part of who you are is really important, and creating and cultivating a relationship.
Yeah, that's so good. We always talk about, we have the policy of the open door policy, right?
Hmm.
Which is fine and dandy, but I really think it has to be more of a scheduled time, because I've
Hmm.
watched a lot of our salon leaders and I'll say, hey, are you guys meeting? Well, yeah, we talk all the time. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but you missed these three things or
Yeah.
whatever. And so if, so kind of getting the buy-in from our salon leaders to make sure it's a set time where they're doing one-to-ones, or
Yeah.
let's just do a 15-minute huddle together, just you and the leader, just so you can make sure you're on the same page, right? Because a lot
Yeah.
of things get missed, and I think it went back to what you said. You can't really make decisions, you can't be decisive until you plan ahead and sit down with the key leaders in the company to make those decisions as you
Yeah.
grow through the
Oh
process.
yeah.
So talk about that. Like Sean and I do a whole month with our salon leaders just about communication. What should that look like? If it should be we're all about scheduled communication, because
Yeah.
otherwise, if you leave it by chance, open door policy, no one's walking in your door, and then you're too busy to even have them walk in your door. Like, let's not fool ourselves, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I think the intentionality has to be there. Like, I think I love it when I'm able to do it organically, right?
Yeah.
If we're just kind of hanging out, it's just me and one other person, and we're just organically having a conversation, and I'm able to do that, right? But definitely having that scheduled time is important. And the end of the year, I mean, always kind of seems to be the best, or this time of year seems to be the best, simply because, like, I know for myself, I get very reflective around this time of year. I don't know if it's the end of the year, my birthday's coming up and I'm getting older. So it's kind of like, it's a reflective kind of thing of like what's happened throughout the year, and finding out where it is mentally, where your team is at mentally. Because, just like, and especially I think these kind of conversations are going to be that much more important in 2020, because everyone's been through a lot this year.
Yeah.
Things have changed. A lot of people have switched jobs and changed careers and things of that nature. So trying to find out where they're at mentally, especially this year, is going to be really important. And what can you do as a leader to grow them throughout the next season of their career? And I think that if that's not happening, they don't feel they're growing,
Yeah.
and that's where you start to lose people, is when they don't feel that they're growing in the place that they're at, whether
Yeah.
it be financially, whether it be mentally, whether it be spiritually, and depending on what your relationship is like with your team, you have to decide where it is you plug into those pieces, right? Maybe you and your team don't connect spiritually, maybe they're not onto that. All right, cool, well, let's connect personally, right? Or let's connect business wise. How can I help you get more clients in 2021? So finding the areas where you're able to really plug in and really do the work of plugging in, and making sure that your team is good moving forward, and that there's nothing unspoken. And I think that's what I found, is that in having those conversations, there would be things I found out that I'm like, man, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I really had no idea. And as leaders, sometimes people can be very intimidated about coming and talking to you about things. So trying to have a easier or open spirit as much as you can is really important, and really just thinking and kind of using your spidey senses almost, to a sense, right? Of just trying to figure out, like, you can tell when people are off, right? Especially if you spend a lot of time with them, and just trying to find out what's going on with them. So I definitely agree with the scheduled times, but you know, if you can hop on it organically and
Yeah.
it's in the moment, go for it.
Yeah. And that's where you just really need to slow down. And
Yeah.
we always talk about, especially in our schools, and, I'll try to do it in the salons too, of just kind of like almost like smelling the vibe, so to
Oh
speak, the
yeah.
mental
Big
vibe.
time.
Like where
Yeah.
where are people at, and
Yeah.
Sean and I constantly sit back and say, what did we miss? How did we miss this?
Right.
And so you're right. And I've been talking to a lot of salon owners, like, you guys, you need to become life coaches, and you need to start thinking about, and I was talking to our leaders in our salons, we have 3 of them, and I was talking to them, I said, listen, some of our team members are really struggling still right now, like
Right.
you said,
Hmm.
with fear, whatever it is, right? They're struggling. I am not like, I won't put it, past myself to be able to pay for them to get therapy. And
Hmm.
Sean knows this, like, whatever our team needs, pay for it. Like, get
Yeah.
them therapy, whatever it takes to help them. We love our team so much. So how can we help them? But unfortunately, what's happened with us, sometimes we miss it for too long. And
Right.
then, like you said, then it kind of blows up, and it
Oh
becomes
yeah.
that toxic behavior. And so let's talk about that a little bit, about, because I love that you said, what's not being spoken, and that's
Hmm.
so good, because we have a culture that we try to make sure it's at 100%, is constant, communication, uninhibited communication that breaks down walls. But as you know, that doesn't always happen. And
Right.
so how do we
No.
draw
Hmm.
that out? How have you drawn that out? Do you have any personal experiences from that with either future professionals, the students in the schools, or with your team members that work with you?
Yeah, I think it's changing. For me, it's always been changing the setting, right? I think
Okay.
if I can change the setting of where we're having the conversation, I'm able to kind of dig in a little bit more. And because I work, in the shorter hair world with barbers, so I work with guys a lot, right? And we're not
Yeah,
always the easiest people to guy
that's
the guy
very
to open
true.
up to. It's not, like I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit easier with women. They're able to kind of open up to each other on a more emotional level, and be able to work through that. But the guys, it's a little bit more. Some of us are a little more, when it comes to certain things. So I think changing the setting is really important. So if I'm working with one of the guys on a part of my team, maybe I don't talk to him at the shop. Maybe we go out to dinner or something like that, and really have a conversation. I've found things out about my team at dinner that I had no idea about,
Yeah.
right? Just by sitting and listening, right? And
Yeah.
so, and what I find out in those times is that sometimes I just need to shut up and listen. I'm doing most of the talking when we're having these conversations, but maybe I just need to be quiet and just listen to them, right? And
Yeah.
listen to them with a different set of ears to be able to hear what's going on, not just professionally, right? But being able to hear what's going on personally, or maybe in other areas. What are those buckets in their lives that really need to be poured back into and to be filled in a little bit more? And how can I help that, right? And if I can't do it, like you said, what can or who can be there to help them with that? So maybe it's a situation of they build a relationship with someone that's a friend of mine, right? Necessarily not me, but a friend of mine, right? That really
Mhm.
can help them in a certain area. So now I'm able to still know what's going on because I have the relationship with my friend. They're making the relationship, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it really works well to be able to do that. And I think some of that really comes just down to changing the setting, right? Because when
Yeah.
we're in the shop, we're all about business. We're cutting hair. We don't want clients and what's going on or whatever. Or even in the school. Sometimes in the school, it's the same thing, right? Maybe change the setting a little bit. And I'm not saying hang out with a future professional at a bar or something, but maybe it's just finding out where they eat lunch at. You know what I'm saying? And just pulling up a chair and having a talk with them for a minute. Find out what's happening with them. So I think just really being
That's good.
intentional
Mm.
and really just thinking about, and like you said, slowing down. I think sometimes we're always on the move. We're always going. So
Yeah.
slowing down and just being sensitive enough to hear and feel
Mm.
what your team is going through.
Yeah, I've been so blessed because I don't have to be in my businesses every day like I used to. I don't work
Hmm.
in them, so to speak. And so I get to walk into them and I'm actually like sniffing out culture, literally
Yeah,
like you can smell it and you kind of see it and you're like,
yeah.
something's off. Something's off in the atmosphere. And you're right, just changing the atmosphere makes a really big difference. We have a
Mhm.
brainstorming meeting that all of our salon leaders are going to be getting together to do an annual calendar planning, but I told them you have to take it off site because if you keep it on
Yeah,
site, it's going to block, your creativity.
yeah.
And so they're like, okay, okay,
100%.
you're right. And I love that. So I want to do a little pivot here for a second too, because
Hmm.
obviously 2020 has been a pivot. What changes have you made in your company and what have you noticed that has been, a lot better for you, I should
Uh-huh.
say, and what changes have you made? And then second, I think the whole Black Lives Matter really opened up my eyes, of awareness, and especially because I need to be more diverse, especially in
Uh-huh.
my salons. And so give me advice, give salon owners advice. We do a lot of coaching with salon owners, and I would say there's two places there's not a lot of diversity is in churches
Church in the
and in
salon.
salons, right?
Yeah,
And I want to change that. I go to a
yeah.
church that's highly diverse and I love it. I'm
Hmm.
so blessed. That's why I didn't even realize that's why I chose that church, even though I travel an hour. But
Hmm.
as far as our salon business, we don't, in our schools, we do, but in our salons, we don't. I would love to see so much more of that. So help us make that
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. So the first thing going to COVID, I think one shift that we've kind of made is just maximizing the time with each and every guest, right? And so what I mean by maximizing the time is really focusing on upgrades, right?
Yeah.
Because as you know, coming in your salon, you have a salon here in Florida, so the you know uh, challenges that we were having. We had to take no appointments only, right? Nobody really waiting in the waiting area and things of that nature. And so, like working in a barbershop, you're used to really having a good amount of flow of walk-ins throughout the day. And so now having to cut that out and saying, hey, appointments only. We're opening up, appointment times from 30 minutes per person to now 45 minutes because we're doing extra cleaning. That's money that's being lost. So really focusing on the upgrade aspect of the service, right? If they're coming in for just a haircut, making sure they're leaving with a haircut and shave or beard trim and a product to go on with it, right? So that we're
Mhm.
maximizing each and every guest, and so that the workers really don't see much of a difference from what they're taking home, right? And I think that's what's going to be important with that is making sure that we focus on each guest and maximizing that timing. Now, actually, for us, it's worked a lot better working appointment only. It allows for us to be a lot more relaxed throughout the day. We're not rushing, trying to get to the next person. So that part of it is good. And then also, what I found is that our client interaction is a lot better now as well because we're not able to have a full waiting area. We're able to really focus on what's going on with our guests,
Yeah.
right? Like how are they doing? How's their family doing, right? How are they working? Are they furloughed? Are they working from home, right? Like what's going on with them, and really just letting them understand and know like, hey, we're all in this together. Like my business took a hit, or your job took a hit, and you took a hit with that as well. So we're kind of all in this together. And being that my business is located right in a neighborhood, right? So it's the people live there, right? They drive by there every day going to work. So it's almost like we're building that community, right? It's like you're fostering much more of a community aspect, which is something that I really enjoy and really love, which is why I even wanted to open a shop from the very beginning, because that's how I came up with the shop being more of a community based. And so I think COVID has really pushed us more in that aspect of building more community and building more with us as people. To the second question, as far as diversity, I think
Mhm.
diversity takes intentionality, and
Yeah.
and I feel as if because in and of ourselves we're really drawn to be around people that look like us, that believe what
Right.
we believe, that go where we go, that shop where we shop, right? We really want to be around people who are like us, but we have to be that much more intentional to make sure that we're pushing out and to be more diverse, right? And so what I would say is that does your team, first and foremost, because it starts with the team that's representing the business, does your team represent the diversity you want to see inside your business, right? Because if not, it's never going to happen,
Right.
right? I can't expect to have people of color as salon guests if I don't have any people of color working at my salon,
Right.
right? Because at the end of the day, a lot more people really, people are drawn, like we said, to what they know. So having a stylist or having stylists of color in your salon or in your business is really going to help to open and kind of close that gap, I should say. And really what you're doing is you're making your business that much more valuable, right?
Yeah.
You're really just opening up to what it is that you can and can't offer. And then also looking at how we do social media, right? Does your social media page really show the diversity you want to see, right? Is it, blondes, brunettes, redheads, right? Is it just that, right? Or do you have some natural curly styles, right? Do you have some braid styles or sewing style or whatever that looks like in order to do so? And then as well, making sure your team is comfortable, right? So what does that continued education look like? Okay,
Yeah.
because a lot of times what happens, salon owners may be able to do something, but their team might still be not very well in that area. So really putting forth the effort and the intentionality to make sure that they're as comfortable with it as well, especially because if they're, the ones that are going to be doing the work, they're the representation of your brand. And one of the things that I always want to have when it comes to people working is I want to be able to say, regardless of who comes in this place, right? When they sit down, we're going
Yeah.
to take care of them, right? This is going to be
Right.
the best haircut, the best color that they've ever had, regardless of what their hair type or their hair texture is. So I think really focusing on being more intentional in diversity, right? So salon owners, when you're going to that hair school to do that
Mhm.
walkthrough and meet students, go talk to the Hispanic girl, go talk to the Black girl, go talk to the Hispanic guy, the Asian, right? Because you want to be able to have and represent and show that, hey, my business, we're open to diversity. We want diversity. And so we really have to be intentional about how we create that
Yeah.
in our businesses.
I love that. One of
Mhm.
the pieces of advice that I saw with intentionality was to look at the demographics in your area. And then
Mhm.
based on your demographics is the percentage that you should hire, of that different, ethnicity, and
Mhm.
so, I love what you said. And I can see where the challenge is just getting more education. So we're working on that.
Yeah.
We're really working on up leveling, not only in our schools, but in our salons with more education. And how do we get that first person that's to work in our salon, because it's almost like they're like going to be the starter, if you
Yeah.
will. And
Yeah.
so, saying, okay, are you, do you do you want to be and being the specialist for natural hair textures? And so
Mhm.
how do we get that first person? And that's where we've really struggled, because again, it's like, and I told my staff, and I'm talking to all salon owners right now, like, your team intimidates people,
Mhm.
and I know when I walk into someplace new, I'm intimidated. I'm nervous.
Right.
I
Mhm.
walk into like a hair show or whatever, I'm nervous, and
Yeah.
so think about the first time that you walked into a place, how nervous you are. And so how much
Right.
more we have to be welcoming. And so trust me, I know some of the things that we have to do, but I want to hear it from your mouth, Brandon, and speak to our teams, speak to our
Mhm.
salon teams, our school teams, how can we be more embracing, of this to make sure that we are intentional.
Yeah, I would say the first thing, making sure number one, like you said, that they're comfortable and know that this is a safe place of comfort, not only for them, right, but for their guests, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, that's really who they're thinking about. Like, yo, is my cousin or is my friends, or are they going to be comfortable in this environment? And so, what that may look like, especially if your salon or your business isn't as diverse, there may be some kind of uncomfortable interactions in that first go round. So the team
Right.
needs to understand what the vision is, right? And understand that regardless, if someone comes in here that looks a little different than you, that maybe has a little bit of a different vernacular than you do, says words a little bit differently than you, don't make them feel like they don't belong. Right? Don't turn your nose up at them. Make them feel comfortable and make them know that, hey, like, this is a safe place for you as well. Because at the end of the day, that person might end up being the one to send you a guest, right? And so making sure that the salon team knows that we want to create diversity, and making sure that the stylist understands that you're going to be comfortable here, your guests are going to be comfortable here, and then making sure that they know, like, hey, if there's any challenges you do have, let us know, right? Let me know. We want to create as much of that as you can for them, because it is, you're right. And I can recall myself coming into Paul Mitchell, right? There wasn't a lot of Black men in this company when I first started here. So it was a lot of very uncomfortable times of, we're at a hair show, I'm working, I'm kind of just standing in the back, just waiting for, for my opportunity to come up. And so it was a very uncomfortable. So what changed it for me was that I understood exactly where I wanted to be and where I wanted to go. And so really making sure that that first person understands the opportunity that they have in front of them. Right. And so I think as the salon owner, if you're really able to show them like, yo, this is how you're able to increase your clientele. You're able to learn and gain new clientele of different textures, right? You're able to make more money, right, than you would in somewhere else. And so understanding and having them to buy in and seeing what that opportunity is, and then coming into a very welcoming and open environment, it really plays a lot to show that, because even if it doesn't work out for that stylist, at least they can say, you know what, I tried, I went to work for Tina, it didn't work out, but she was always good to me and she made me feel open and she made me feel welcome. And so what that does is it'll then open that up to someone else, right? Because you never know how that goes. And once that first person goes and sees how great it is that they can work and be a part of the team, they're only going to tell someone else. And that's how the business grows exponentially from that point.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I know we could stay on this for hours, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, pray for us that we can make this happen in
Yeah.
our companies, because I've been wanting to, the Sean knows, since day one, to make this happen. And so I'm really hoping
Yeah.
2021, proves this true.
And so
But
also looking at like the services offered, right? So think
yes,
about what services you currently offer and what services can I add in order to build more diversity. So if that looks like I need to put in
yeah,
a
yeah,
sew-in package or put in something like that uh, to make it a little bit more diverse and show like, hey, we do these services, right? And the thing is that and I've seen your salons are beautiful. I've seen them, right? And so who wouldn't want to work at a beautiful salon, right?
hmm,
Everyone does. So I think it's the aspect of if you're going to be comfortable or if your guests are going to be comfortable, or can I do what I'm good at in
yeah,
this space,
yeah,
right? Because nobody wants to
education.
go and
Hmm.
yeah, that's huge. Like, can I do what I'm good at in this space? And so looking at all of those aspects really are going to help to set anyone up for being more diverse.
I love this. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely needs to change. You said something really big, which I know a lot of our salon owners are really struggling with this. We have a mastermind on Monday nights, and they're saying a lot of them have a reduction in clients, the amount of
Right.
clients that are coming in.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for those salon owners?
Yeah, just hang tight. Because what I'm
Yeah.
finding, even myself, is that last week I cut two people that I hadn't seen since March, and their hair was all the way down long, but it's because they've been working from home, and so they don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to, they don't really go out they're not going to the bars or the restaurants or anything like that. So they're not really having a nightlife. So they're just staying home. So the
Right.
biggest thing I would say is stay strong and focus on new clientele, because the older clientele, they're going to come back, right? Once we're, COVID's not going to be around forever. We're going to be able to get on the other side of this and really make more shifts, but prepare yourself for the next wave of not only clients, but the next wave of employees, because I really feel like because of COVID, our industry is going to see a big boost in people
Yeah.
enrolling in school,
Yeah.
right? And
I agree.
it's going to be older people, right? So I know like our schools, for when I first started with the school, there was a lot more older students, right? That were like transitioning from one career to the
Yeah.
next, right? So there was a lot more responsibility, and it went down to younger kids, right? 17, 18, fresh out of high school, not as much responsibility. I think we're going to see the full swing around again, because what's happened is a lot of people who work for companies, they don't really like how their company treated them throughout some of this, right?
Yeah.
Some of them want to take control of their career, and so they want to go into a trade, right? And so I think the hair industry is going to be number one on one of those trades. So prepare yourself for an influx, right? And making sure that your continued education is on point. Because even when you look at students that are graduating within the last few months, they've missed a tremendous number of hours of hands-on education, right?
Hmm.
And so when they go into a salon, they're going to need that much more continued education. So whoever is in charge of that in the shop, or if there's no one in charge of that, implement that, right? Because you're going to need to train new staff a lot more. So hang tight and know that the clients will be back, right?
Yeah.
Focus on making the most of each guest that's in your chair through upgrades, product sales, offer more deals on take home, right? Get that stuff off of your shelf and really just focus on the new clientele, right? How can I get new clientele back in the chair? Because in the same breath of some people leaving their jobs to come into this industry, there's going to be people that were in this industry that are going to leave and say, hey, I need something more concrete. So what happens to their guests now? Right? They're going to need somewhere to go. So prepare yourself because the bounce back is going to be greater than the setback.
Oh, I love it. The bounce back is going to be greater than the setback. That's
100%.
really, really awesome. The other missed opportunity that I'm seeing, Brandon, is because, now that I'm on Zoom, 24/7, basically,
Yeah.
I notice I need my hair done more. And it's, I actually could kind of get by without doing it because I wasn't in my schools like every 3 days or whatever, but now it's every day. I have to always be on point because I'm always videotaping myself. I'm always on Zoom. So it's even worse. So I've actually had to learn how to blow dry my own hair. And so that was like a plus. I think that could be a real plus for our clients because you can bring them in and sell them hot tools to teach them how to blow dry their hair and also teach them how to do a Zoom call. Like we all look pretty awesome in the Zoom call, but I've seen a lot of people that don't look awesome at all. And so we have an opportunity here. How have you taken advantage of the opportunities that are given us as far as being more on film now?
Yeah, I think the opportunities for that is really just focusing, for me at least, is with like product sales, right? Take home, things of that nature. Because now, even when if I have guests that work like yourself, like you said, working on Zoom a lot, they're going to need more product to control their hair, right? Different products to control their hair, especially if they allow it to get long, right? So for me, I think have just had to be honest with some of my guests. And I'm like, yo, like, I know you were coming once every 2-3 weeks. You're only coming 5 or 6, that's okay. But what can we do in the meantime, right? To keep your hair looking good in between visits, right? So even if that's showing them little things about, hey, how can you clean up under your neck a little bit, or sending them recommendations on at-home trimmer to work with, right? And I know sometimes we're reluctant to do these things because we feel like we're going to cut ourselves out of some money. But at the end of the day, we're really not. Right? If I can still continue to get that same guest to come in, even once every 5-6 weeks now, eventually he's going to bump back up to his old spot. And he's going to feel like, you know what, Brandon looked out for me when I was at home doing my own hair. So I'm going to continue that loyalty to them. So just be real with yourself about what it is that your guest is giving or getting, right? And really help them a little bit more with that. And I think I've done that a few times over the past few months, and it's actually worked pretty well with keeping the guests coming in and keeping that communication with them. So suggesting products, right? Selling them, getting them hooked up with more take home, and even like you said, some tools or hot tools would be great in order to keep themselves looking good in between visits. Yeah, especially for shorter hair, because most of the time shorter hair, people are working like every 2 to 3 weeks, something like that, right? Some guys every week. Right. But if I can teach you just how to, touch your line up a little bit, grab your, get the hair under your beard a little bit, right? So that when you come in, we're able to kind of really work through that. And I've even given them little pointers like, yeah, you went too far in on this area. It's a little higher up here. Right. So let's kind of even you out so that you can do it a little bit better next time.
I think that's a missed opportunity when I think about it too, is the fact that the salon owners should be recruiting their own talent too, because you may have a couple guys that are really good at doing their own hair and say, hey, why don't you go to, barber school and then you can work with us, when you're done. And so I see a lot of missed opportunities of really attracting your own talent to work with you as well, and scholarshiping these students as well too through that process versus training them in-house, which we've seen as well too, which always doesn't work out so well because that's, you're talking about 2 different businesses. Now you got a school inside your salon, which can be kind of scary, and I don't even do it, and I know how to make that happen. But I love that you're dual licensed. And I think that's another missed opportunity as well with hairstylists, because especially in Florida, it's so easy to be dual licensed, right? Michigan's a different, story. We're hoping to get that shifted. But talk to the Florida salons in particular, and those states that it's pretty easy to be dual licensed, why they should be?
It really opens up their business to grow more, right? And I think that's the simple answer of it is you're going to grow more. And I know years back, salons would kind of shun away if a person had a barber's license and didn't really want them, or they're like, oh, well, we're not a barber shop. Well, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah.
anything, right? If that person is, because the way I look at it is if I get this person who's in as a barber or a barber shop, have a barber's license, obviously I'm able to now cater more to male guests or short haired guests. But what if I'm able to train that barber licensed person to do longer hair as well? So now I've opened them up even more, right? In order to make more revenue for the salon. And so now my business becomes much more of a one-stop shop as opposed to just catering to longer hair or things of that nature. So I think that if you look at it from that perspective, it really works a lot better. And then, like you said, it's easy to get the dual license here in Florida. And I try to share that with the future professionals is that if you come back as a cosmetologist and do the barber crossover program, you're able to now make yourself that much more valuable to a business, right? Because now what you're looking at is I can take care of the whole family from my one chair, right? I can take care of mom. I can take care of dad with a hot shave or anything like that. I can take care of the kids. Now your business is growing. The business only grows if that individual stylist or barber is growing, right? If they're not growing, your business isn't growing, right? And so if you can continually keep people growing more and more and more, your business itself is going to grow. So they have to be a little more open-minded and really seeing what that looks like practically in their salon. And it doesn't mean that you have to, and some salons do, they do like a whole nother build out and they have special areas dictated just for male guests and things of that nature, which is cool, right? That works and depending on where you're at. But it can be as simple as bringing someone in that is just able to offer those services. And now what happens to the rest of your team? They're seeing like, yo, Kelly or whoever has taken more guests in between her, while her colors processing, she has a male guest in the chair. She's making more money. Now, what are they going to want to do? They're going to want to do the same thing, especially if they have a couple down weeks. They're like, yo, how can I fill these blank spots in my book? Now they're going to want to invest more in themselves. And so before you know it, your salon has grown that much more, right? Just simply from being open-minded to take in that first person. And I think so if we start with the end goal in mind, right? The end goal is for your business to be booming, male, female, whatever that looks like. Start with that goal in mind and set forth the practical steps to get it. And that practical step, first of all, might be hiring someone that has a barber's license.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I always love our salon owners that come in and say, hey, you guys, you should get the extra 400 hours to be able to have a dual license, either way, cosmetology or barbering. And I love when they say that because I think most of them don't even realize, how really simple it is, to be able to get it. And as 1,200 hours really is not enough hours in the day to, really, master and do well in a salon. So, Brandon, you are exactly what I thought you were going to do. You're not short of amazing, but you are just incredible. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
How can, what's next for you? How can we get a hold of you? And then Sean will have our last question and take it home for us today.
Yeah, so to get a hold of me, I should say is through social media, right? At Barber_PhD on Facebook, Instagram, all that good jazz. But what's next for me is really just looking at the areas in which I'm growing or I can grow as not only a behind the chair as a barber, right? But also as a business owner. 2020, I had some things kind of in the works that kind of fell through that were a little disheartening, and kind of made me kind of take a step back and really look at, okay, well, how can we make this happen, right? Or what does that shift look like now, right? Because as you know, like in business, like things never really go how you think they're going to, right? So, and my whole, in respect to that is, my whole thing is like, either way, I'm going to make it happen. I might have thought it would take me 6 weeks. Maybe it'll take me 6 months, but either way, I'm going to make it happen. So I think for me, it's about growing my team, growing my business more. And then also growing in education. Like how are we able to bring, because that's what I do as well as working behind the chair. Obviously I work in education. So how am I able to help the next generation of stylists, or how can I help this current generation of stylists through our current means of education? So whether that looks like, you know, virtual classes, virtual hands-on classes with different salons and barbershops, that's fine, right? So because at the end of the day, we still want to make sure that we're training and that we're all getting better together. So
Outstanding.
I love that. So we've
Thank
definitely hit on a lot of things today for sure. We've talked about, you know, being open and mindset and being intentional. And, you know, you talked about leadership's influence. And I think something that we all want as leaders is to really get that influence. So what would you recommend for somebody starting their leadership journey is some of the best steps to really gain that influence?
Oh yeah, big time. I would say, number one, when it comes to being in leadership, give up the need to be thanked, right? Leadership is a thankless job. Like if getting flowers on Boss's Day and all of that stuff, like it's great, it's beautiful, right? But if you don't get it, don't feel some type of way. You know, you have to be able to give up the need to be thanked, because you have to do things for the sake of your business, and everyone's not always going to say thank you. And that's okay, right? You have to give that up. And then also understand where your influence is leading, right? Because in not only just a business side, right, but as leaders, sometimes even what we do personally in our personal life has an influence on the people around us of what they do. So even so, something that's so simple as a social media, right? As a leader, what is your influence on social media? What are you posting? What are you, you know, sharing, right, on social media? What are you even liking, right? Even a post that you might like. What are you liking that people who are underneath you may see, or not underneath you, but under your leadership may see? Because that's an influence. And to whom much is given, much is required. So I think if a person can't understand those things, then leadership may not be the thing for them. Or if they're already in leadership, kind of have a self-reflective moment, because I think as leaders, we all have to have that, and understanding like, yo, I can't take this, don't take anything personally, right? I can't take it personally. I have to manage and govern from a position of fairness, right? And from a position of just opportunity. And so making sure that as a leader, you're always kind of having that self-reflection check of, why am I feeling this about a certain situation or a certain thing? And how can I help my business or my people around me to grow? And so that influence is going to be really important in making sure that we do that.
Wow.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You dropped a wealth of knowledge on us, and definitely leaves us inspired on this Monday morning. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Brandon. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.